Did you know that there's ways to trick your brain to think that it's much younger than it is? On today's show, we're going to find out the 10 ways to age-proof your brain. It's a disease that's affecting more than 5.5 million Americans. Dementia and Alzheimer's, an ailment affecting the brain, can create havoc not only on the one living with the disease, but also their family members. Debbie Bernstein, a Torrance resident, knows firsthand the difficulties that comes with caring for a loved one with this disease.
My father-in-law was an engineer. He worked for aerospace in the area. He had a top secret clearance. He designed guidance systems for airplanes and warplanes and different things like that. He was top of his class from UCLA. He was a brilliant man.
Debbie says she didn't notice symptoms until 8 years after her father-in-law, Morris Bernstein, retired from his job. And while she can only speculate the timing of his retirement along with his older age and questionable health, something triggered the symptoms.
Certainly, if they address their health-related issues, treat their hypertension, their diabetes, their high cholesterol levels appropriately through, say, changes in their diet, increasing their exercise level, following their physician's orders, perhaps taking some medications. If they make those changes, they're going to see that the changes that occur in the brain structurally and chemically, they're certainly slowed, okay? Inevitably, there will be some change that we can't stop, but we have very good and convincing evidence to say now that if we're aggressive in lifestyle modification and treatment, patients will do better. And in our aging population of baby boomers, I think what's really critical is management of our diet to prevent obesity. We have a group and a population of patients where obesity is really becoming an epidemic. It's becoming a huge problem. As the incidence of obesity increases, our incidence of diabetes markedly increases. Diabetes and obesity really go hand in hand. And we know that development of diabetes increases our chances of becoming or developing dementia significantly. So it's really critical that patients are exercising, that we're watching our diets as carefully as we can so that we don't develop obesity, which ultimately leads to diabetes and which ultimately may progress into a condition like dementia.
Dr. Soderlund from Healthcare Partners in Torrance said there are things older adults can do now to help age-proof their brain, and by doing so, possibly even slowing down the onslaught of this debilitating disease.
Lifestyle modification is critical because we know that if we tend to take good care of a patient's chronic medical illnesses, their progression of dementia is going to be much slowed. It's going to be more delayed. They're going to maintain their memory function longer than in, say, a patient that doesn't take aggressive treatment and control of those types of risk factors.
According to UCLA's Longevity Center, our brains begin to shrink as we go through the aging process. With the shrinking comes many negative things associated with brain functions.
As patients age, get older, there are normal changes that occur in both the chemistry in the brain and the structure of the brain. Inevitably, there is an aging process in the brain like there are all the other organs in your body. And as time goes on, there is kind of a natural age-related atrophy of the brain. So the brain undergoes structural changes. It may actually become a little bit smaller. The circuitry and the wiring in the brain, as time goes on, has a wear and tear process just like anything else that goes on inside your body.
Debbie's father-in-law's lifestyle that led to Alzheimer's is what doctors call textbook. His progression of the disease is exactly as doctors predicted, making it somewhat easier for Debbie and her family to prepare him for slowing down the disease.
My father-in-law's condition is almost textbook. You know, once he was diagnosed, I did a lot of research on the internet, and I looked at the different stages and the different things and what gets you to where you are. And it's like they wrote a book about him. Everything that's happening in his progression is exactly what they say should be happening at that particular stage. Everything that he's doing to help himself is really helping. Everything that they say is going to happen to him is happening. It's amazing how much they know about something that they don't know how to cure.
Debbie says she knew she had to have that difficult conversation with her family, one that could change the course of their lives forever.
When we finally got my father-in-law to agree to go see a specialist, the first thing they did when we got in the office was they did a test to kind of test his brain power, his memory. And that was so eye-opening for all of us, but especially I think that showed him, because the doctor asked him, he gave him 3 things to remember. And he said, I'm going to tell you 3 things, and then at the end of our appointment, I want you to remember those 3 things. And the 3 things were really simple. I mean, I still remember it was cauliflower, baseball, and a car. And we got to the end of the appointment, and he could not remember not one of the 3 things. And it was only 5 minutes later. And even when the doctor said, okay, the first thing was a vegetable, was it broccoli? And my father-in-law went, yeah, that's what it was. So obviously he didn't, you know, they asked him simple questions like, where do you live? And he's lived in the same home since the 60s, and he couldn't remember the name of the street he lived on. And he could remember that he lived off of 2 busy streets, but he couldn't remember the name of those streets either. So at that point, the doctor said, you know, not only are you in the second stage of Alzheimer's, you should not be driving at this point. You should not be driving. And that was huge, because my mother-in-law was in a wheelchair. She couldn't drive. And basically what that meant was taking away the last ounce of freedom that he had, the last little bit that he could get out and do things. So, but he obviously knew, because he said, okay, never fought it. And we walked out of the doctor's office, he handed me the keys and said, I guess you're going to need to drive me home.
Dr. Soderlund says it's important to diagnose early and to have an open conversation with family members about this disease.
Every patient's different. Some patients, like I said, themselves come in and they're overly concerned. Some people, like you just pointed out, may be more of a denial process where they notice that maybe things are happening, but they really don't want to address it. So it'll get to the point where a family member brings them in and says, hey, look, I think there's a problem here. My mom, my dad, you know, they're not remembering things like they were in the past. So, you know, you could get the whole spectrum of what can go on in terms of how they present into the office.
The UCLA Longevity Center also came up with a top 10 list on ways to age-proof your brain. Dr. Soderlund shares his thoughts on these findings.
Number 1, get moving. I think that's critically important, that patients are active and exercising. We certainly know that that's going to prevent obesity, keep our patients in more fit, and will help in so many different areas, including obesity, hypertension, development of diabetes. Pump some iron, absolutely, is just another form of exercise. Keeping our muscle tone as we age is also critically important. Seek out some new skills. Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about taking medications and treating hypertension and high blood pressure, but exercising our brain is a critical thing to do. Being sedentary all day, sitting on the couch, watching television passively, these are not brain-stimulating activities. So getting out, learning a new skill, you've got to treat and take care of your brain just like you take care of everything else in your body. Meditate to get rid of stress. You know, stress reduction is critical. Somebody that's very stressed, certainly that's very taxing physically and mentally. So taking care of that part of your life is critical. Eat like a Greek, healthy diet. And we've talked a lot about that. I think that's extremely important. and spice up your food, you know, you need to be within the parameters of what you discuss with your physician. You need to eat food that you enjoy, and that's important. A healthy, balanced diet is critical. Find your purpose or mission in life. That sort of gets back to meditating and stress reduction. You've got to take care of your mental functions and have a purpose. That's very important. Get a social life. Absolutely, getting out, socializing is a great brain stimulating activity. We've talked a lot about reduction of your risks, diabetes, hypertension, obesity. These are all issues that are really important. And check vitamin deficiencies. That's something that can be monitored pretty efficiently with your primary care physician. There are certain vitamins and supplements that we know can be beneficial for our patients.
I look at this list that you give me of the 10 ways to age-proof your brain, and I don't think that there's a single thing on here that my father-in-law did in his life to age-proof his brain.
Debbie's father-in-law is not able to take care of himself at this stage of the illness. It's difficult for him to remember if he's taken his medicine, and he's wandered out the front door for a walk and not remembered his way back home. His disorientations and memory problems made it mandatory for his family to arrange a 24-hour caregiver.
Well, my recommendations to anyone who thinks they're going through this or thinks their family member might have early stages is don't wait. The only regret that all of us have at this point is that we let it go for as long as we did, because the doctors have things that they can do. They have medications they can give that slow the progress, that help the patient, lifestyle changes that make their life better. And we lost a couple of years of that because we didn't want to accept that he wasn't going to be the brilliant man anymore. So that would be the biggest thing. And then the other thing is your list that you just showed me are all the exact same things that the doctor told us to do, not just for my father-in-law, but of course the first question I had was, is this hereditary? You know, is my husband going to be doing these same things in 20 or 30 years from now? And the doctor, almost word for word, gave us the same list of get out there and walk around the block, start eating healthier, start getting involved in groups, take classes, do lessons. It was, you know, it was almost exactly, I mean, I don't think he said to eat like Greek, but but other than that, he basically said all of that. And my father-in-law is doing a lot of those things now with his care provider, and we are seeing a little bit of an improvement in him since he's been doing that. So I think that's the biggest thing is don't be in denial, get your head out of the sand and do something.
Coming up after a short break, we sit down with 3 local seniors to see how their lifestyles and habits fare in these top 10 ways to age-proof your brain.
Some dogs fetch and roll over. Some dogs take you to Spain and shopping for refrigerators, help you get through grad school, start your own business, go on hikes in the Grand Canyon. Some dogs you trust with your life every day. Being partners with a guide dog is having the freedom to do what you want in life. Nothing more, nothing less. And with your help, nothing need ever change that. Call 1-888-884-DOGS or visit guidedogs.com.
I'm Gary Sinise. I've had the great privilege of meeting and working with many of our country's heroes, our veterans, and heard their stories. But for the 58,272 names on the Vietnam Wall, their stories will never be shared. Help us change that. The Education Center at the Wall will put faces to the names, displaying photos, letters, and mementos of those who served, so their stories will never be forgotten. Visit buildthecenter.org and help us build it.
Please help feed these precious orphans. Show them that someone cares.
Donate now at foodfororphans.org.
Hi, we're here at Healthcare Partners to meet up with 3 seniors of various ages to see how they age-proof their brains. Okay, so now I'd like to have each of you Tell me your age.
I'm a whopping 54 years old as of June.
Okay. And Eileen?
I'm 74 as of September.
And Jerry?
In my mind, I'm about 29, Jack Benny's age, but I'm going to be 60 in January.
What do you do to relieve your stress? Give us an example.
Well, for me, stress is part of a daily thing, being in business, dealing with a lot of things. I'm pretty good with that. It's just a state of mind for me. And, it's better than hitting a wall. But, I just try and laugh. If I look at something and I try and let it go as soon as I can. Plus, I meditate. I've been meditating since the early 70s. So I've been doing transcendental. And so I've learned to just let things go.
One of the things I found about stress in my life, I used to have a lot of stress. I had my own business. It was very stressful, managing employees and wondering where your next dollar is coming from. And I've just realized that as I get older and more independent, and I'm able to just choose the things that I want to do now, and I choose the things that are less stressful. I sold my business. I do work now that is less stressful for me, and I realize that stress is a huge issue, and that's part of the reason I sold my business. I was just working myself to death, literally. And I realized that if I'm going to have a fun, enjoyable life, and I want to be there for my kids, I need to simplify my life and de-stress so many things. And so I wasn't really thinking necessarily stress, but I definitely thought about simplifying my life and cutting out the things, to stop working 70 hours a week, and now I work 30 hours a week if I'm lucky. And so I cut down on the things that were adding negative things to my life, and negative things tend to be stressful. And so I try to surround myself with positive things. But you have kids too, and you can't avoid stress with kids.
And so tell me, what do you do to stay active?
I live on the second floor, and I have a dog, and so I have to walk her several times a day, and we get out and walk different areas in the neighborhood. And since she's old and I'm old, I try to run a bit when I'm walking her, and I can run still, but not fast enough to get her to run. She just walks fast.
I do ballroom dancing.
Cool.
Twice a week, I go out with my girlfriend. We go to ballroom dance class, and we learn different steps in ballroom every Monday and Wednesday nights. And it's a real challenge to keep track of all these different steps that you learn, and to carry them out, and then try to remember them when you're out social dancing. To how did that step go, and which way do I turn you, or which way do I flip you, or whatever. And it's really fun. It's good exercise, and I enjoy the challenge of learning all these new steps.
I've been working out since I was a kid. I go to the club and the gym, and I've been doing that for a long time. But also I'm very active. I'm in the household moving, and sometimes I'm on the truck and I'm still working, so I keep pretty active.
After talking with our three guests, I asked each of them to look at the top 10 ways to age-proof their brains, and all three weren't surprised by the list. So what do you think? Do you think you guys did really well on this 10 ways to age-proof your brain?
Not bad.
I think this is very informative.
Good,
I love
good.
it.
Yes.
I think that I would give you all at least a B+. I think you are all a great representative of seniors of all the different age groups doing your job really well of keeping yourself and your brain smart, healthy, sharp. Congratulations, everybody.
Thanks, Hope.
Thank you.
So now you've learned some important secrets on how to age-proof your brain. Now get out there and start doing those things that we learned. I'm Hope Witkowsky, reminding you that knowledge is a powerful tool. So tune in next time to Senior Scene for more secrets on successful aging.